y'all, Mike Haber here. I just want to come on here to give a shout out to everyone at Manhattan Concert Productions, giving them so much excitement as they're gearing up for a really exciting show this weekend. So for those of you who don't know what Manhattan Concert Productions is, it's an incredible organization that helps professional and educational ensembles get the opportunity to come to New York and perform on some of the greatest famed stages in all of Manhattan. Some of these include Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center. So one of their most notable things that they do every year is they put on an annual one-night only concert of a Broadway musical. So this weekend, they're going to be putting on the cult classic Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is such a classic story, and the music is breathtaking. So if anyone who is out in New York City this weekend, be sure to go to David Geffen Hall and cheer on this amazing all-star cast, creative team, full orchestra, and 400 of the greatest upcoming rising stars from all parts of life on one stage, bringing this timeless story that you know like you've never heard it before. So definitely give them so much love. I'm also wearing this shirt, which coincidentally comes from an MCP show that I was lucky enough to do back in 2020 before the world changed. We all know what happened. I was lucky enough to be part of one of their Broadway concerts. It was a one-night only presentation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And that experience alone, to me to this day, if I could think of one great gig that I really was having the time of my life, it was that one. It was Joseph. You know, I'm actually really thinking about it. Even though this is technically supposed to be a shout out to the Jane Eyre people, I'm sure there's also some people watching on here who want to learn more about what Manhattan Concert Productions is and what they do with their Broadway concerts. And you know what? This is kind of funny on my personal level from my vlog, you know, because I've been doing this whole series called Artist First, which is talking about some of my great core moments that really stood out. And to me, I always say Joseph was definitely the key one. So, you know what? Kind of intertwines both worlds. So let me take you on a little behind the scenes experience at what it's like doing a Manhattan Concert Productions one night only presentation of a Broadway musical. So MCP concerts are not only done with just musical theater, but they do other various genres. So jazz, classical, and so much more. And like I said, basically it gives the opportunities for professional ensembles and school ensembles. So if you're in a choir or in a band, you get to come to New York and perform on some of the most famous stages here in the Big Apple. But their Broadway series is the most popular. So their first concert was in 2013, which was a one-night only concert presentation of Ragtime. It did so well that they just continued the tradition ever since. So they later went on to do Parade, they did The Secret Garden, The Scarlet Pimpernel, and a couple of others. But for Joseph, which was the concert that I was in, this coincidentally commemorated the 50th anniversary of the musical's debut. But in MCP's Broadway series, the way they set the show up is basically they put together an all-star Broadway cast and creative team of some familiar faces you know from popular Broadway shows. And then the other big part is they include a 31 to 40 piece orchestra, the New York City Chamber Orchestra, which is made up of some of the best musicians in New York City. So a lot of the musicians who are in it are also in other orchestras all over. So some of them are in the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. Some of them are in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. Some are in the New York Pops and also in the pits on current Broadway shows. But the other big part of an MCP show is they include a 300 to 400 piece choir, which gives an epic boost on especially all the big ensemble pieces on a musical like you've never heard it before. So I was familiar with Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat before. I remember seeing the movie in a music appreciation class in 6th grade, and then I remember auditioning for a couple of community theater productions, which obviously I didn't get in. But then it wasn't until around the summer of 2019, I was working as a background, believe it or not, on the Oscar-nominated remake of West Side Story. So I heard about it when I was on set, so I thought, why not? I submitted my headshot resume with less expectations and didn't hear anything for quite a couple of months until around November was when I got an email from the staff. They said they're interested in having me in, and all they had me do was submit a video of me singing from any gig that I did. So luckily I had a couple on my Vimeo account. I submitted that in, they approved it, and that's how I got into the choir. Of course, I was screaming, I got so excited. I remember going into the city the next day, passing by David Geffen Hall, and just taking it all in. You literally feel like a kid in a candy store. But Joseph had such a wonderful all-star creative team and cast. So it was directed by two-time Tony Award winner Michael Arden, who, let me tell you, he was so spiritual the whole experience. We also had James Oslop choreograph the concert. You might know her work on the TV show Pose. She did the choreography for that Whitney movie, I Want to Dance with Somebody, and a bunch of others. She was so sweet. We also had Broadway veteran extraordinaire Robert Hartwell as the associate director on the concert. Always brought such an elegance and a presence into the room. The concert was conducted by Grammy and Tony winner Stephen Aremus, who did a lot of the orchestrations and was the original musical director on a couple Broadway shows you might know of. Maybe Wicked, perhaps, The Book of Mormon, Frozen. But the cast was amazing. We had Noah Galvin played Joseph. The central role of the narrator, which is usually played by one woman, was played by three powerhouse divas. Michael, you are a genius for turning the narrators into a girl group. So it was Ina Espinosa and Jessica Vosk, who were two former Elphabas, along with later Tony winner Alex Newell, who some of you also might remember from Glee. We also had Andy Carl and Orphe at the time when they were married playing the Potiphars. Michael decided to modernize them by making them look like a certain current leader right now going on in our world. But then another highlight moment was that some of the roles in the musical actually got gender swapped. So one of the biggest ones was the role of the Pharaoh, played by the incredible Merle Dandridge, was actually now played by a woman instead of usually a guy. So if you have seen the original Joseph, or at least the movie, the Pharaoh is usually like this Elvis rock and roll dude. But in the version we did, they made the Pharaoh more of like a Tina Turner and Beyonce kind of a diva. And then also the roles of some of the brothers were also gender swapped. We had future Tony winner Bonnie Milligan be one of the brothers. And then we also had Julia Madison, who is now the Tony and Grammy nominated composer of That Becomes Her. We also had G. Armstrong Johnson, Jason Gauthier, and a couple of others. So here's my score binder. So this had like all the parts of what I was going to be singing and everything. So we have all that fun stuff. So obviously I got the score a couple of months prior before the show. So I was kind of learning it on my own. Well, for the choir, basically it was a mix of school choirs and professional choirs that were rehearsing at least a couple of times a week together, and then individual singers, which I was one of them. So I was pretty much learning it all on my own. And of course, like listening to the movie and the cast album so many times. So we didn't come in until 3 days before the concert. The principal cast had a full week of rehearsals, but the choir, we came in at the last minute. So we rehearsed at the Sheraton Hotel in Times Square. It was a 3-day boot camp. The first day was just a full music rehearsal running through all the choir stuff with Stephen Aremus. On day 2 was when the full principal cast came in, along with Michael and the rest of the creative team. And they also taped out the stage to make it look like what the set was going to be. It was like a real Broadway rehearsal. But when we started to sing for the cast, they lost it and broke down. The principal cast, everyone was so sweet. There would be moments in between when Michael was working with one of them to work on blocking. They would come up and interact with us, talk about our excitement, where everyone came from. Everyone was just so tight knit, so encouraging, and everybody wanted to be there. Even for the kids who were in the choir, we had a lot of middle school, high school choir kids, and people who are in theater intensives around. but even seeing their faces light up and getting so starstruck by seeing their big Broadway heroes right in front of their eyes, and we were sharing the stage with them. It was a great moment, but of course, we kept it professional. And not only it was just the principal actors doing all the blocking and doing some movement, we as the choir, we had the opportunity to get to do some core moments during the show. But one of the biggest things that Michael and the team at MCP did for the show, because there was 400 singers, they actually split the choir up. And so what they would do is they would have 200 people on stage for each of the acts. So for the concert for me, I was on stage during the first act, and then when I wasn't on stage during the second act, basically we would be appearing in the tiers close to the stage, like the box seats in the balcony in the house, and we would sing from there during the second act. There'd be moments where we jump up and we start singing, so it's a nice little surprise to the audience. Finally came day 3, which was our very last rehearsal, the day before the show, and that was when we, the Act 1 choir, were then joined by the Act 2 choir and the principal cast, and we did the entire show from start to finish, with some stopping in between for technical notes from Michael and Steven. After the rehearsal, Richard Ridge of BroadwayWorld.com came and did a post-rehearsal talk back with the creative team and the principal cast. It was so amazing to hear their stories of where they came from, their advice, their spirituality, and what goes in preparing for a big concert like this in such a short amount of time. And of course, there were photo ops with the principal cast. Everyone was just so humble and very excited about the concert the next day. Notably, the staff of MCP themselves, who worked so hard and very committed to putting on such a great show. Finally, it was the day of the concert. We met up at the hotel first for a quick vocal warm-up and run through a couple of numbers before walking over to Lincoln Center and to David Geffen Hall. But that feeling of walking into the stage door, it was everything you can imagine from a performer's perspective. We go backstage and they put us in this green room backstage to put all of our stuff and then line us up to get ready to go onto the stage for dress rehearsal. Stepping onto the stage at David Geffen Hall, I remember getting so emotional but played it cool. Oh, and by the way, those photos of David Geffen Hall's auditorium, that was the long-time original design that they had before they did the big renovation. And during that Joseph concert, we were actually one of the last couple of acts that got to perform on the Geffen Hall stage with that original design. At 2 p.m., we went straight into tech dress rehearsal. The whole process alone took about 4.5 hours to run through the entire show from start to finish. There was definitely a lot of stopping going to fix everything between the lighting, the sound, making sure all the voices sound great. And it was also the first time that we were performing with the orchestra. So there was a lot of things to do in such a short amount of time because we had an audience that night. We then had a 2.5 hour break before the show. So everyone went out and quickly grabbed dinner. There was a cafe right across the street from the hall, so some people went there. And just like they do on Broadway, we had to be back at David Geffen Hall by half hour. So the concert was at 8 p.m. and we had to be backstage getting ready at exactly 7:30. So it was really cool to actually get back into the hall and then you hear the stage manager's voice over the PA system. This is your half hour call, and then everyone's yelling, "Thank you, half hour." A lot of jitters before going on stage. Then at 7:45 was when they called places for the choir. So we all got lined up. We walked onto the stage. And we just had to sit there watching the audience come in. But there was so much excitement in the room. Then exactly 8:05, we started the show. The moment Stephen Aremus walked onto the stage and you hear the applause as the choir and the orchestra stands up, this was it. That night, it was a rock concert. As soon as the principal cast first came onto the stage, the audience just went wild. There were so many great core highlighted moments throughout the whole course of the concert. Of the cast turning their backs facing us, the choir, that was one of my favorite moments because it was everyone looking at us after them being so amazed by what we were doing in rehearsals and the love that they gave to us. It's a reminder of why we do this and how music is so important. But I remember seeing all of them smile, and then Even Ina Espinosa, I remember, gave us a really funny face, and she got us laughing. I remember she like stuck her tongue out. She's like, everyone was kind of giggling at one moment. Michael Arden is a genius with how he gave the show more of a unique contemporary feel. Some of the brothers were gender swapped. The Potiphar scene, there was a parody of a certain political leader that stole the show. I also remember during Close Every Door, Michael Arden came up with this idea for the chorus to have these signs that we would raise that would pay tribute to the legacy of great historical figures and philosophers. So the sign that I was raising had the sign Greta, which I found out it was a nod to Greta Thunberg. The audience applauded during that moment. And of course, ending Act 1 rocking out with the cast on Go 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 Joseph. I didn't want the first act to end. Then at intermission, we switched and we went up to the upper tiers for Act 2. For the second act, if you were sitting in the house, you actually weren't in all the numbers. There were only a few highlighted ones that you got to appear in. I think they just give whichever actor on more so you can kind of have your moment to shine. And when we weren't singing, we got to enjoy some unforgettable show-stopping highlights, such as Jessica Voss giving a powerful rendition of a Pharaoh story, Merle Dandridge showcasing her funk side during Song of the King, Bonnie Milligan bringing down the house, singing Those Canaan Days. She got a mid-show standing ovation, y'all. And M. Kilgore bringing down the house, singing Benjamin's Calypso. By the time we got to the finale, the audience was on their feet. Then, the mega mix, it became a dance party. But the concert was a huge hit. And there was a huge crowd outside the stage door waiting for everyone, not just the principal cast, but even members of the choir, including myself, were signing. I had a lot of family and friends there. The love was so magical. The principal cast at the same time, including Eden, Jessica, Jay, and Noah, they all gave us so much love and said how much fun they had performing with us. The other big surprise, Ben Platt was in the audience, so he came backstage, and he was so nice afterwards. Immediately after the show, we headed over to Planet Hollywood for a post-show after party. We thought the principal cast was going to be there, but it was just for the choir. So there was a DJ, a lot of food, and just getting together and celebrating the amazing success of one awesome sold-out show. And Joseph is truly a reminder that any dream will do. And that's the whole experience of an MCP concert. If you ever want to get the opportunity, if you're in an ensemble or want to perform alone, definitely shoot them a contact and get more information, because let me tell you, their experiences is everything you can ever imagine. And not many people get this opportunity to perform on such an iconic grand stage, but it's truly a reminder that anything is possible. And like I said, in the words of Joseph, any dream will do. But once again, break a leg to everyone involved with Jane Eyre this weekend. And hopefully you guys get to enjoy this. And definitely I want to keep supporting MCP with all of their upcoming projects. And hopefully I'll get to do another one of their shows real soon, because they're the best. And yeah, they rock. But thanks for watching.